It is the Anfield Wrap in association with RedsBet. RedsBet, part of FansBet, who invest in lots of fan-related causes and media across the country. Do gamble responsibly and do be gamble aware. It is the Anfield Wrap after Liverpool went to Bradford and won by 3-1. I've got Adam Smith, I've got John Gibbons, I've got Ben Johnson, I've got Paul Hogan. I am Neil Atkinson, and thank you very much for listening to this show today. And do tell your mates about it as well if you get the opportunity. It's a new season, a new fresh start for absolutely everybody. This appears to include Adam Lallana. John, it's the manager's now talking about it, and it was an interesting little chat that he gave where he made a joke saying, you know, if Sarri watched him playing that Jorginho sort of style, he may well step in there and think, what about this? You do wonder whether or not this is to get him sharp, or whether or not this is part of the plan.
Yeah, it was interesting to see him there, because it wasn't like we had to. You know, there was other options on the pitch or in the other team, but he went for that. I wonder. I think he watches a lot of football, doesn't he? And I know that sounds stupid, but you know, there's this thing where every now and again an opposition fan clocks that he's watching their warm up, and he's like, "What's he doing?" He's like, "He does that every week," you know. And I think he's interested in what other teams are doing, and I think especially Guardiola, and I think Klopp and Guardiola are watching each other a lot, are learning each other from a lot. I've obviously got a lot of respect for each other, and I think he's obviously got his eye on how do we turn sort of 97 into 100 and something points, and I think he's probably had a look at some of these Man City teams that Guardiola's put out last year, and we've all thought, bloody hell, he's doing the tackling there, and then it transpires it's no one because they don't need to, because they've got the ball. and I think so I don't, you know, I'll be shocked if we're walking up to Old Trafford with Lallana playing in as a 6. I don't think that's in anyone's suggestion, but I think it is. I mean, to be fair, it's the games that we've you know, been doing well in anyway. It must be said, our record against the 13, if you like, or 14, or whatever you want, everyone outside the top 6 essentially was very good last season. But you know, that's not to say it'll necessarily happen again next year, and that's not to say that necessarily there won't be moments where it's a bit tricky, where he wants to try something else, and that might be Lallana in that deeper role. I think when he's talking about how good he is on the turn, I thought that made a little bit of sense. You know, you're talking about someone who is going to be playing with the back to goal quite a bit more than the more attacking positions, just because, you know, you're receiving it more from centre halves. You're looking to turn, you know, if someone's pressuring, who can deal with that. And I think on the ball, Lallana makes a reasonable amount of sense in that role. I think off it, he obviously doesn't, but as I say, you're picking your games.
Paul, there is a thing whether or not he wants them all to be multifunctional, with the possible exception of Fabinho. You get the impression when he plays, will play literally there. But you do wonder whether or not he wants, you know, it's part of his conversation to Lallana is almost, I need you to be able to do this because I might need to do this during the game. I might need you to come off the bench and do this. You know, I do wonder whether or not that is part of this.
Yeah, I definitely think that is part of it. I think the idea of Lallana being around the place and Lallana being an option, I don't think he's the option he was in the front 3 anymore. So playing him deeper, I think, makes him useful, makes him a tool in that squad. I think the nature of Lallana is he always puts a shift in, the nature of his pressing and things like that. As another player alongside Fabinho, I think that again might be something he's interested in. And it negates the fact that he hasn't got the pace, which to be fair, he's never had. So yeah, it's
one where, Adam, again, we think all the time as though he's only going to play 4-3-3, he's only going to play 4-3-3, and that's because at the end of the season he only played 4-3-3. At the start of the season he played different shapes, and there was a bit of a diamond as well, even come the end of the season. You know, there is still a single or double pivot question, to use the parlance of our times, in terms of whether or not, if he does go to 4-2-3-1, he might want someone else to be an option to play next to Fabinho in there as well. It might not be as straightforward as, well, it'll be Henderson or it'll be Keita. It may, or Gini, he may well be thinking, listen, I just need all of you to be able to do a bit of everything for me.
Yeah, which makes complete sense. And I think I'm in terms of our transfer moves this summer, my big concern is the reliability of certain players. And maybe the manager's trying to negate that by saying, well, if we've got a load of lads who can all play a load of different things, then I can go with who's fit and
reliability. So Lallana, Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Yeah, exactly.
Who else?
Keita is obviously not.
Yeah,
he's not last year. And look, it's one of those. Even somebody like Gomez. You mentioned Gomez's fitness record, and someone will say, "Oh, it's a different type of injury." That it is. Yeah, but he was still out. So it doesn't matter whether it's a different type or what. He still has missed a lot of Liverpool games. So maybe the manager's looking at it and thinking, if I've got 7 lads who can all play the 3 roles that I want to be able to play, then it doesn't really matter which ones are fit at any given moment. They can all play in the way that I want to play them. And in terms of Lallana, he can look as good as you want in a 6, but if he's not fit, it's irrelevant. So that's my concern of spending a summer looking at how he plays, and then all of a sudden he's out for 8 months.
The question for me, Ben, is also around whether or not he thinks it might just be useful for his sharpness. He kept using the word sharpness in that little chat. He was, this idea that he'll be on the ball here, he'll have to do stuff, he'll be active, and almost, you wonder at times, it happens at all levels of football, whether or not the manager's got the idea of, well, if I pick him there, he'll get to be consistently involved, and therefore the pre-season might be of more use to him.
Yeah, it's a good point. And there's probably something in that. I think what John said before about looking at what City did, like they played Gundogan in that role of Fairby when they're playing against sides who offer nothing going forward, and they just all rotate it. The next minute De Bruyne's in there, the next minute Silva's in there, and as you said before, when you watched it yesterday, Milner's popping up next to him, and I think the rationale possibly behind it is you're at home against, or maybe away against, people who aren't going to try and break. They're going to sit, they're going to dog, and then they're going to try and get up the pitch and have a corner. You get that a lot, and there's no need to have someone being able to recover. There's no need to have Fabinho being able to recover 50 yards to win a ball if you don't need to, because you've got Virgil still behind you who's done nothing all game. Do you know what I mean? It's a point of having let's have as many attacking midfielders as we can in centre mid and see where we get on.
Is there something Ben about there is something a little bit odd going on at 6 in a sense, in that when Wijnaldum's played there, Henderson's played a lot there, but it looks like we're going to want to use him elsewhere. Obviously Fabinho, you get the impression is going to be the specialist there, but there is vacancy is the wrong way to phrase it a little bit, but there is a bit of a thing where he may well want to have these other footballers be in these other roles. For instance, I don't think we'll see Henderson move back particularly often this season. I think he'll have liked that, and he'll want to continue with the idea that Henderson is able to force the play from that position, sort of on the edge of the final third.
I think the one thing he says, Klopp, when after Wijnaldum played that role against Everton, I think. And what he said on it's a risk reward, the role you've got to be able to take someone out the game in certain games. So I think the limitation possibly of Henderson in that role is if he gets it, he doesn't often turn. He plays, if he's got a bit of pressure on him, he plays the way he's facing. So if he gets the ball into feet, he'll play back, and then he'll rotate the ball around, and then he'll try and play a forward pass. And I think what Wijnaldum was doing time and again in that game against Everton was he was getting the ball in, sucking someone in, and then rolling them, and then he's beat a man, you're away. And I think that's maybe what he's looking at Lallana, because Lallana's got that little half turn. He can open up that 5-yard space if someone does press him, and we're not that bothered if he loses it, because again, you've got to get past Virgil, and if you're going to get past Virgil, all the best. Do you know what I mean? If there's only 1 or 2 of you pressing, I think it's around that, a risk, and we're happy to take that risk against certain sides. There's no way you see him against Tottenham or whoever. Do you know what I mean? It's just not happening.
I think the other interesting thing with the squad, and we're talking about having the numbers in the midfield, but actually the nature of the way the squad went last year was we needed to use some of them numbers at centre half, we needed to use some of them numbers, and I know we've got the left back position on the script, but it might be that he might need to use some of them midfielders in them positions as well, so we're going to need more options in midfield.
On that, next one to move on to, John Curtis-Jones was, I thought, impressive, to be honest with you, and almost, it's a strange way to phrase it, almost too impressive. I mean, to me, you've got to be careful because it's only the opposition he's playing against, but to me, he looked Premier League quality, but to be Premier League quality, he's going to need to get games in the Premier League, and it's difficult to see his pathway through to that at the minute, and it does look to be one of them really, whereas Brewster looks and is talked about as though he is going to be absolutely stellar. It's almost easier in a sense, isn't it, to blood someone who's going to be absolutely stellar than someone who looks like he's actually just really, really handy. Just sort of know what I mean?
Yeah. Curtis is in a bit of a difficult position, really, and that he impressed last summer as well, and caught a few eyes, and he'd gone on the back of a good season working with Gerrard, where he'd been good for the under-18s, and then in the under-19s Champions League he'd lit up the tournament really, and then it didn't really happen for him for the 23s last year. And the 23s is a funny team, and it's a bit of a mishmash of who you're going to get. And he, a couple of times he played at Anfield, and he was poor really in a game where you really wanted him to sort of to like light it up, and it always looked like he was trying to do too much. He was maybe felt the pressure. I need to be the star of this team if I'm going to get anywhere near the first team. Where he's sort of not that sort of player really. Like, he's skillful and he does catch the eye, but he doesn't run games. And so,
do you think he's the sort of player who needs to play with better players?
I do. Yeah, that is what I'm getting at. And so I almost. That's why I think he's in a bit of a tricky position, and I don't see the point of throwing him to Tranmere, for example, and he's watching the ball go over his head. I mean, that's being a bit disrespectful to Tranmere, because they but that's what they look, because just because they were trying to do that against Liverpool doesn't mean they're trying to do that week after week. But I think he would struggle a bit on loan. And I remember speaking actually to a lower league manager who was saying I wouldn't take him, because I'm not sure what I'm doing with him, and that was a sort of a successful lower league manager really. And so I think they're in a bit of a funny situation with him, where he might end up a bit Adam Morgan, and that's me worry with him, in that he's one where he looks bright and looks close, and you like him and you like his energy and he looks good with good players, but I don't know. He's in a bit of a difficult position.
He wasn't helped, to come back to you on it, John, before we go any further. He wasn't helped last season by Wolves away. I think the idea of Wolves away, it's almost the worst possible draw, because they're good, they're big, they're strong, they're all the hits, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And then suddenly you're Curtis Jones in there, and Liverpool aren't in the game for you to be able to showcase what it is you're good at, which is to bring people more into the game.
Yeah, and I thought he did all right against Wolves actually, but we didn't play particularly well either, and I think he needs a lot going on around him at the moment. And you might say you're indulging him a bit there, but he is a young player, and I think he has got a lot of skill, and I think he has got things to offer. I think he likes movements. I think he can link up with. He doesn't look out of place, does he? Like what often happens, when you see someone who looks really good for the 23s and then they step up, you're like, you get a bit frustrated with them. That used to happen to me with Roster. Roster was the opposite. He used to run games for the 23s, and then you put him in with the first team, and you're like, behave. Do you know what I mean? He looks like a ball boy, and but he was the kind of the opposite. Really, he used to bully kids. Ross said it, then you throw him in with the adults, and it's not really happening with him. Kurt's sort of the opposite, and I really hope he does do well, because I do like him, but it's just it's a pathway thing. But maybe you don't know. He's got the rest of the summer to impress. I think he'll go to America. I think he'll keep getting involved, and I think the fact that he can play a number of positions helps him, and then maybe we'll get a better League Cup run than Chelsea at home.
The rest of the summer to impress, Adam. You mentioned before, you actually specified 3 names: Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Lallana, footballers who, there have been injury question marks around. You can, to an extent, maybe throw Henderson in there as well. Gets 29 starts last season, Henderson. Interestingly, when Wijnaldum gets 43, the rest of the midfield, no one gets more than 31 starts, which is Milner. But there is the possibility, at least, of him being able to push through there. It is just really difficult to have that pathway conversation for him.
I think it is and it isn't, because I think when you're looking at the younger players, you can talk. We're going to come on to talk about Brewster, and you can say, well, he's got a stellar reputation. He's probably the most talked about player since Sterling, who was the most talked about player since Owen, and that's all great, but he's never played a Premier League game. So it's brilliant that he's got this reputation. Hopefully he looks amazing when we play him, but he might not, because he's never played a Premier League game. And the same can be true of basically all of the younger players that actually, maybe Curtis Jones does look better when there are better players around him, but we won't know that until we see it. And then at that point, pre-season isn't really useful for that. So it's difficult to know any which way, isn't it?
He gets, Paul, the benefit of, as Adam's just sort of phrased there, if and when he gets the shirt, the benefit he has is that the manager does seem pretty committed to run the meritocracy. That if he can find a way to get one Premier League appearance and then be the footballer he is, which is the footballer who brings the best out of the players around him, then he could find a way to hold on to it. For me, it's almost like how you'd imagine him getting maybe the first game, the second game, the third game. I think if he was to get to 10, for instance, I think he'd have a pretty clear pathway to 30, but it's getting to 10, isn't it?
Definitely. I think he's looked the part. at when he's been given the opportunity, but it's about, as you say, getting that opportunity. I'm hoping that Klopp maybe uses his substitute options slightly differently with the likes of Brewster, the left backs next season. Although it's difficult to say that because, you know, the amount of substitute options he used that sort of won us games last year was unreal. But I
was Divock.
Exactly. But I'd like to see him do that, and that's where you can sort of see him starting to get in there. I think the nature of the squad being better means that when we play in the cups, we're not using all the kids. I think that helps where he's playing with better lads. So I think there's still hope for the lads, but I think the nature of the position he plays makes it difficult for him. You know, as good as we're saying Brewster is, he's playing in a position that does make it easier getting opportunities.
There's also something else, Ben, which is this is your 97-point problem. We can talk a lot about, you know, what we want. We do want to see young lads be given an opportunity, but you're trying to beat Manchester City. You're not even trying to come forth anymore. You're certainly not trying to build a side that can challenge for the top four. You're trying to get 100 points, and I think that's going to be a problem for all Liverpool's young players now, is that you've got to look part of the 100-point solution, not part of the 76-point solution.
Yeah, I mean, the quality they're up against is unreal. Like, you look at it's all well and good looking at a friendly and saying, well, he looks sharp, but then the thing that your mind does to you is it tricks you. So I watched the Tranmere game the other day, and I discounted what Milner did because I know what he can do. But he fucking ran the game. No one's asked because it's Milner, and it's a bit boring to say Milner was good, wasn't he? Well, yeah, he's going to be good because he's a Premier League player. He's 31. He's won, you know. But that's what he's up against to get a start. So for him to get a game, he's got to be better than Milner, Keita, Lallana, Henderson. Then is he going to go and play one of them wide positions, which he might not overly be suited? I think he might have played that Wolves.
That's when he got a bit of time with Wolves, yeah.
So you're asking him to do a completely different skill set, playing slightly out of position. He's got to be better than Mane, or Mane's not going to be there, so then he's got to be better than Shaqiri. If Shaqiri's not there, he's got to be better than Origi. You know, if Origi's not there, he then might get a game, and then he's got to do something. It's such a hard ask, and unless, I think the difference with Brewster is the from what comes out of the club is we look to be nailed on in our thinking that he's going to be brilliant. So he's going to play. I mean, you ask Klopp gets a bit of a cob on, or he did the other day, someone asked him to downplay his expectations around him. He was like, no, fuck off. Basically, you downplay it, I'm not, because he's fucking brilliant. Like, you hear the whispers out of the club. There was an article in the Times at the back end of last year, and it was I think it was Joycey, and he was talking about Milner and Oxlade-Chamberlain, who'd been trained doing this finishing drill with him, and they were like, he's unbelievable. His finishing's unbelievable. So the whispers that come out is, no, he's going to start. He's going to get his chances because he's that good. I think the problem for the likes of Curtis Jones, Ben Woodburn, who looks a smart player this time 2 years ago, everyone was raving about him. He looks really smart. He looks dead intelligent. But how do you be more reliable than that squad of players in front of you? It's dead hard. You've got to have something go your way, I think, and then you've got to grab the shirt. You're looking at like 4 or 5 people getting hurt before one of these gets a sniff, and I don't know how that stacks up.
There's on Brewster, Paul. He looks head and shoulders in a good way. I think he looks head and shoulders in comparison to the other young players. I think that's both the opposition and then the other young players across the course of the 45 minutes he gets against Brighton. I think it's really interesting that's your benchmark. He looks in the company of Milner running the game rather than, oh, let's see what he can do. And it's almost an aura, it's almost a charisma about him, really. I was unbelievably impressed with him against Bradford when he didn't do that much, but then also when he got his chance, he put it in the back of the net, and his work rate as well.
And how he mixes it up as well. You know, when you're watching him for the under-18s, under-23s, he looked like the player who's looking for the ball in behind, you know, like what you see in kids football, where the ball goes over the top and everyone chases it type of thing, and obviously at a higher level. The lad looks like he can play anywhere. The lad, he's coming off, he's linking up with players. He's, you know, the header against Tranmere was the one that I was impressed with, because it was such a goal scorer's goal. It was a, you know, Fowler-esque type of thing where he had to change his body movement quite quick to be able to put that in the net. I just think that the lad's got more than I realised he had. It, you know, when we were talking about him originally, we were talking about him being a fast centre forward, which you see a lot of these kids come through and they've got a bit of pace about them. He seems to be much more than that. I wonder how much of that is through training and modelling his game around Firmino, how much he's having to adapt, because, you know, he's had quite a serious injury as well, and how much of that he already had. You know, I think it's yet to be seen really with him, but I think he's exciting.
He's great around the box.
Yeah, he is. He's doing everything he can, isn't he? That's what you got to say. He's doing everything he can to shut people up about needing another option. You know, he's done brilliant, and I think, you know, as Hogan says, it's his all-round play, isn't it, that maybe kind of surprises you a little bit. You know, you've heard about his goal scoring, you've heard about his pace, but, you know, the other stuff that he's able to do, his strength, playing against, you know, big lads, his awareness of what's around him, knowing when to link up and when to go yourself. He looks real star quality, and you know, it's, you know, like John says, you don't want to kid yourself too much, but at the same time, like, you know, you're seeing what everyone's been telling you, so it's like, it's not like suddenly this kid's come out of nowhere and you're like, oh, this fella looks smart. Do you know what I mean? It's a build up of the fact that he scored an hat-tricks in World Cup, you know, youth tournaments, the fact that, you know, everyone's been saying this lad, you know, the fact that they were so desperate to keep him, you know, the fact that, you know, so many other clubs wanted him. It's not like, it's not out of nowhere, it's just people going, yeah, there you go, told you.
It is a bit there you go, told you, Adam. There is a concern though in that for any young player, you know, you don't want to, you know, overburden them. It looks like Brewster wants to be overburdened, you know what I mean? That's the way everything about him sort of suggests, no, bring it on. But you can sometimes pile it on a little bit too much, maybe even through conversations like this, on podcasts like this one. You can end up sort of piling it on a little too much if you're not careful, but it is exciting. He is a genuinely exciting player.
Yeah, he is. I mean, it's brilliant. As I say, I don't remember a player being talked about it in the same breath since Sterling. And when Sterling arrived on the scene, you were like, oh, yeah, I see now why everyone's been banging on about him. I wonder whether, I understand what John is saying about the manager's not going to dampen his own expectations or play things down. But I wonder as supporters if we need to, because it might take him a little while to adjust to the physicality of the Premier League, to dealing with, you know, grok defenders. And
America's big for him, isn't it? I think it's he's seeing who he, like, if I'm the manager, I almost want to know, I want to make sure I'm playing him against the better player. You know, if the opponents are doing the thing where it's half and half, I'd almost want to be saying to them beforehand, hang on, which half's got your best defenders in?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what will be most interesting, is how he copes with that. And it might be, you know, it might be something like we see him against Norwich because Mane's not back. And, you know, Norwich, look, they've been playing good football and things, Norwich, but they're still championship defenders who know how to do championship defending. And how he copes with that, maybe we need to go, oh, he's had a rough game against Norwich there. But the manager's going, yeah, but he's a quick learner. Don't worry about that. He'll be all right. You know, you wait until you see him against Chelsea or whatever, you know, whatever sort of is next on the agenda for him. That'll be the most interesting thing in how he develops as a player, is how he copes with the vigours and the rigours of actually playing Premier League defenders who will put him on his arse repeatedly, sort of thing.
John just said, doing everything he can to make it look like we don't need one more. I think you're of the view we need one more in attack. I think everyone around the table has at some points offered the view that we need one more in attack. Is there anything that he can do that can change your mind, or are you still, broadly speaking, going to get to the kick-off against Norwich thinking, if we haven't got one more, we should have got one more?
Yeah, no, I'll be the latter, for the simple reason that he's so young. It's the same when people talk about the defenders and people keep going, oh, you know, Hoover looks great. Yeah, but he's 17. If we bring a player in that we use for 7 years, he'll still only be 24, which is still quite young for a centre back. Like, I don't see it being as anything other than beneficial to him to be able to say, you will get Premier League games, you will get all of the cup games, you'll probably get an occasional Champions League appearance, but if you finish the season with 15 starts, that's brilliant. You're young, don't worry about it, that's all right. Now, if we've got somebody who comes in as a player who is more experienced and more ready and more able to rotate with the front three in the massive games, I don't see how that's detrimental to Brewster's development personally.
Yeah, I just went to another number 9 specifically, really. I think we do need another forward, and I think, you know, there's 3 positions there, isn't there? And I don't think we have got enough, but I just meant more of a number 9.
Yeah,
the idea of going out for an out-and-out striker, I think that's him for me.
I agree with John. I think with Divock, and Brewster as alternatives to that centre, and also Salah can do it,
and Mane, you know what I mean.
Mane can do it, but I think Brewster specifically around that centre forward role. I think we need a wide player to fill in, and you've got the options. You've got the options of not having to play Salah and Mane every time in that right, left, whatever it is. I wonder if some of the stuff we were talking about earlier about Lallana playing that little 6 role is designed to be able to get more actual forwards up front. You know, we're talking about we need 3, we need options for 3. It might be 4, and it might be that you have someone dropping deeper to fill in the midfield, and it's a lot more fluid. And the idea that we're going to be stuck to this 4-3-3 thing, I think you started last season is your tell on that, is that we're not. I think we're going to try and find a way to get through this season the way we did last year with different formations. That's not going to take loads out of certain players and try and do enough to win games, and then go 4-3-3 back end of the second half of the season.
I think the other thing as well is I remember hearing someone talk about Michael Owen when he was coming through, and they brought him through, and they'd take him up a level every so often, and he'd smash it at every level, and it got to the point where you can't hold him back no more. And the problem is that they've got to give him the legs to prove whether he can smash it at that level or not. And we've talked about Curtis Jones. This lad's in a moment, and I think that's another problem with young players, is if you don't give them that time in that moment. So much of football's around confidence and things like that. He needs that moment, if you know what I mean. And I think
the other thing is fun. I think it's a funny situation in that you don't often see it. But he's 19 and he hasn't started a Premier League game. He's not like Hoover, 17, whatever. He's 19 because he's had that long period out. It's a little bit strange, to be honest, and that's why there's a load of. That's why we're having this conversation here. Because if he was 18, banging, if he hadn't got hurt and he'd carried on just banging goals for 23s, England's under 19s, England's under 21s, whatever, and then played a few last year and scored, you'd be like, yeah, he's flying. He's defo starting. But because there's an unknown, you don't know what you're getting out of him. He like literally physically, you don't know what you're going to get because you've had this year where nothing's happened. But that you mentioned before, he might have spent the year watching, learning, listening. Watch Firmino's movement, watch Salah's movement, and taking it all in and building his game and building himself up and all that. So it's one of them. You don't know what's going to toss of a coin. He could just go and be fucking brilliant, or he might need time, and you're not going to know. And that's what's an added sort of bit of added detail into the whole thing.
Last little thing, I'm going to come on to talk about the left backs, but I'm going to do in the context of the transfer conversation we're going to go on and have. In that the manager dropped it in there as well. John, just dead quickly on the importance of the cause, really, and also what I said about the club. The manager speaks so well, both for the club and also for the game in general. I thought he was really impressive with the way in which he spoke around it, and that it's never cloying. He never gilds the lily with it, really. He's just quite matter of fact in the best possible way, which is, he says at the end, this is the best reason to play a game of football. And I think I think he's often, we talk about him being a credit to the club and a credit to himself, but again I think he's almost a credit to the game, the way in which he's just able to cut through a lot of that sort of stuff and articulate in 50 seconds why the cause matters. And I thought the same thing about Milner with his post-match comments as well.
Yeah, I think both of them are great on it, and Klopp, the game is lucky to have him, and I think he cuts through so much of the bullshit around football and gets to why it's great and why it's important and why it actually adds value to society and to life and to and to people. And I think he's great at that, and he's really good at it, and we're lucky to have him as a manager for a whole host of reasons, but that's kind of one of them, really. And he never kind of says too much either, you know what I mean? He's asked about it, he gives a brilliant answer. He says, what we're all thinking but can't quite articulate as well as him, even in another language, and then that's sort of it. And I think Milner, obviously been good all week, getting the songs going on Twitter and all that. But it just, a lot of it as well just shows that how highly sort of Stephen Darby's thought of as a person and kind of, what he's been through. And we sort of hastily put something together on Saturday. And just because realised we hadn't previewed the game properly, really, with a lot of other things going on, and it wasn't hard getting people to talk about Stephen Darby and how boss he is, and that's really nice, really, because people like leave your club and then you're vaguely aware of who's had a good career and who hasn't. But I didn't know how much they love him in Bradford. Do you think he's fucking boss? And I was like, well, that's great. He's played 200 games for them. He's part of the mad cup runs they had. He gets them promoted, you know what I mean? And they think he's brilliant. And also they think he's a boss lad. And you're like, well, nice one. Our academy's done that. Our academy's produced this good human being and this good footballer. And that's, it's not quite as eye-catching as producing an Owen and Fowler, but it's producing a professional footballer who's seen as, and Milner's sort of obviously similar age to him, and has got a foundation, and I know made the donation on the day as well, which is brilliant. But everyone just Stephen Warnock, I thought when Stephen Warnock was talking about him, I just presumed he was his mate, or they must have gone through the academy together. There's 7 years difference between them. Like he just knows him and likes him. Do you know what I mean? And everyone does, and I think that came through a lot on Sunday as well, which was really nice.
Okay, we're going to move on and talk about the transfers. Going to talk about the left backs as well from the game against Bradford. Have a little chat around that. Just want to mention a number of things quite quickly. The first one is the Anfield Wrap tour. We are in Chicago on the 18th of July at somewhere called The Tunnel. I always love this. You never know what the venues are like until you get there.
It looks mad, John.
I like the sound of it, to be fair.
Google it, mate.
I will.
It's a bit of you.
Is it?
I don't know how I'm going to sell t-shirts. It's pitch black.
Yeah, all right. Come The Tunnel, it's pitch black.
No, there is lighting, but it's just not like...
Not much.
It's
just at one end.
Yeah, there you are.
Plus strobe.
It's murky. It's murky at The Tunnel. We will be indeed murky as well. I cannot wait. Chicago, we've never been. It will be an absolute ball. July the 18th. Not quite sure who's on stage yet. We sort of just muddle that through.
It'll definitely be me and you.
Definitely be me and you. Definitely be Craig.
Yeah.
And then we'll sort of see who's about. Have a show of hands and see who fancies it. Is almost the way in which we do this sort of thing.
Someone's put me onto a milkshake in Chicago. It's got mayonnaise in.
Oh,
come
God
on.
almighty.
Play the game.
No, apparently it's incredible. Apparently.
What flavour? Like mayonnaise flavour, or like?
No,
that'd
like
be horrible.
That's a secret.
That should be a bowl of mayonnaise. It's a milkshake, that's it, guys.
No, it's a secret ingredient. Apparently, that's what they put them in to make it taste so good. Like it's like an Oreo one or something, or cookies and cream or something. I think it's cookies and cream, but it's.
It feels very cloying, John. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not
Chicago's favourite vice.
Okay. That's sitting on my stomach. I'm not doing that before we go on stage.
It's 15 minutes. It's just heavy breathing.
Everyone told me these Anfield Wrap live shows were energetic. Akko's having a stroke over there. It doesn't look good. That is Chicago on the 18th of July. Come and see me have a stroke in the dark.
$20.
And then we're at Carragher's. Really pleased to be at Carragher's on July the 22nd. That's the Monday, July the 22nd at 8 p.m. All the tickets are through C-Tickets. I managed to find it. I've just read it off the website, so that's how easy it is. You go onto C-Tickets, you click search events, you type in the Anfield Wrap, you're able to find either of them. We're also doing stuff around the events that the club are putting on. So there's 2 of them at Boston. We'll be at both of them. I'm not entirely sure how you get into that. I think one of them's just open air. The other one will get an answer for that, and I'll say it on a show at some point.
We're waiting for them to announce it.
Are we?
Yeah.
Good. It's good to see. We're winning the organisational battle anyway.
Oh, we've had the club off. They're all over the shop. You've been on sale for weeks.
Excellent. So yeah, come and see us. We'll have an absolute ball. It'll be a party. If you've got any doubts, ask anybody who was at any of the Anfield Wrap live shows, but especially Detroit. I'm very much hoping that at some point I have to turn around to John and say, John, we're going to have to do the party set here, and then we'll go from there. There'll be quizzes and fun. By the way, really, really fun stuff. You're not sitting down with a piece of paper with a fella who's going to ask you to swap your papers around later on. Other thing as well is to mention that there's a new T-shirt. John, do you want to tell us about the new T-shirt?
Yeah, we did. I don't know if people saw an animation that a guy called Ruben did in Bradford, Brighton.
I've been making a mistake the other way around all day.
We played Bradford. Down at one of the Brighton cop lads, Ruben, did this brilliant animation of Divock Origi's goal, which has been on our Twitter. I had loads of shares and stuff like that. Clive Tilsley did some commentary for us because he liked it so much, and we decided to turn it into a bit of a T-shirt. So it's one of the coolest ones that I've seen. I made up with it in terms of remembering the final. Obviously, there's loads of bus tops around by a variety of people, but this one in terms of capturing that moment of celebration when Divock slotted is yeah, it is pretty special. It was either that or Jono throwing up in the streets, but we went for
it's quite the T-shirt.
But we went for the Ouija this time.
I mean,
that's when you sell out of it easy. Just got to throw that in.
We haven't got Ruben to do the animation yet, but I'm looking forward to that. Also, I want to give a shout out. Some fella whose name I probably should have to hand, but I don't. Got hold of Craig and basically works for Club Wembley. And he went, "I'd like to give you some tickets to give away for the charity shield, the community shield." So we went, "All right, sound. We'll give them away to listeners." So if you go to clubwembley.co.uk/the Anfield Wrap. And it says here that Club Wembley, they run a membership where you can own seats at the stadium. It works in a similar way to the season ticket to the clubs. You'll have seen all this sort of stuff. Tickets to the big events, it includes the Community Shield, the Senior England Men's Games and the FA Cup, all of that sort of stuff. But there's 2 to be had for the Community Shield if you fancy it. John, I want you to know I'm very much playing the long game on this. Me, you, maybe a couple of others. All 3 playoff finals back-to-back next May. That's why we're talking this up.
No, okay, yeah. Getting that travel lodge over the road.
Oh, the weekend of our lives. All 3 playoff finals back-to-back. See, it's almost like an endurance sport. It's the footballing equivalent of an Ironman. Honestly, can't wait for that. Other thing, there's a lot of admin, but we'll do it all, and then it's all done out the way. The Anfield Wrap shift to the premium packages around audio and video, and where you get everything for £10 a month. Please choose that one. There's a reason why that one's in there. We'd like you to choose that one, and we're working on the video all the time, and it's really good work that everyone's doing. That will start formally across the board from today being Monday the 15th of July. So if you are only on the £5 thing and you're wondering why you can't get access to various other shows, that is now the reason why, and we need you to do stuff around that. There's been loads of emails sent. Do search your emails, search your junk if it's gone in there, and that will give you all the details rather than me bang on about it now on this show. Sadio Mane's made the final of the African Cup of Nations. Good for him. It means that we could have a winner of that along with the Copa America winners. Liverpool players win things at the moment, but I want to talk about left backs against Bradford, and I want to spend a bit of time on it. John, they both look vulnerable to me, going backwards. Different points during the game. I wasn't entirely comfortable watching them, and they're both clearly good footballers. That's the thing that's not up for debate, but it is interesting that after the match the manager actually opened the idea of maybe dipping into the market in a way he very rarely does.
Yeah, I don't think the 2 things are necessarily connected. I don't think he's watched that game.
Oh no, and then gone. No.
Definitely the left back. I think, he was asked sort of similar questions after Tranmere. He's always obviously asked about transfers because, it fills columns and gets people clicking. But I think, he's been fairly consistent on the transfers coming in. We're saying if the players available who we think we can improve us, then we'll get them. But if not, we'll kind of use what we've got, really. I think he's having a good look at these 2 lads. I don't think it necessarily means that either of them will end up second choice at left back, because there's midfield options he always likes to dabble with, and then there's transfers as well. But I think both of them are doing pretty well. I think, look, Larouchi's a converted winger. He's only played 1 season of football at left back, and that was for our under-18s, and so he's learning all the time. He's learning the position, and occasionally he is going to get caught out, like anyone any age would be, kind of, with a shift of position. I think Adam Lewis is a lot more established at left back. I probably think he's ahead at the moment. I think he gives the penalty away, but I think if your concentration's going to go in a game, it might as well be 3-0 up in a friendly when the game's kind of petered out. And I think the fella takes him by surprise, and it's not ideal, but I wouldn't look anything massive into it. I think I was watching the tennis at that point, so I can't talk. Do you know what I mean? And so it was one of them where the game had dwindled out. No one was really doing anything, and his concentration goes a bit, and he gets done, and it probably won't happen again.
Adam, it's difficult, I think, for the club to find a way through the left back question, in that it's undoubted that it's Robertson's position, and it's undoubted that they're gonna, I think they will want to maybe rotate a tiny little bit more this season because you don't want to pound someone into the ground. But it's easy for a manager to sit down and say that in July, when you live in the reality trying to get 100 points and it's suddenly October and Andy Robertson's looking at you like, no, I'm absolutely fine, Gaffer. It's a different kettle of fish. And I do think there is we all want the chat around 2 players for every position, but maybe there's got to be a little bit of realism here that it is going to be tricky for Liverpool to do that, because suddenly you've got a lad who's kicking his heels like Moreno was last season.
I also think we've got to remember how much of a problem position left back's been for Liverpool over the years. It's everyone, now that we've got Andy Robertson, everyone's sort of acting as if there's loads of boss left backs knocking about and we should just sign one of them. But we've struggled. Probably Aurelio was one of the best ones, wasn't he? And he was constantly injured all the time. He's basically made of crisps, so he was a bit of a waste of space. So it isn't easy. I think it's more likely that we'll sign somebody who can play both full-back positions, and therefore will mostly cover right back and occasionally have to do left back if Robertson needs a break or picks up an injury or whatever. But yeah, my middle name's Lewis, so I won't hear a bad word said about Adam Lewis. And if we could sign Adam Smith from Bournemouth, then that'll just box me off, really. That's fine. So just move him up. I'm a little bit annoyed the other one, Sfara's name isn't pronounced Larakai, like Malachi, because that just sounds a bit cooler. Larocci or whatever it is sounds like a magician, so I'm not keen on him.
Okay, excellent stuff.
Seems a bit harsh.
Excellent stuff. Paul, it's Matt Targett, who I had a bit of an eye on in my capacity as left back purchaser for Liverpool Football Club. Went to Aston Villa from Southampton. He's been Southampton's second choice. We've got a fair few games last season. Second choice left on side play. Went for 15 or 16 million quid. It tells the story really of whether or not, if you are Liverpool, whether or not you want to put money on someone to be number 2 to Andy Robertson, because to get Matt Targett, who, as I say, may well have been behind Ryan Bertrand in Southampton's pecking order, you were paying 16 million quid.
Yeah, I mean, before the show, I had a look around trying to figure out what left backs were out there.
It's mad, isn't it? I've got on any.
I couldn't put a name on anyone who I'd go, oh yeah, I'd have him. I sort of look at the left back position as there's options within the squad, and the nature of certain players wanting to give certain players a game mean that you could potentially use it as a way of keeping lads fresh and keeping lads involved.
Throw Lallana in there.
Maybe, but you've got Milner who you want to. He's going to want to use Milner, and that might be an option there.
Would you make a late Fab Delph move, Hogan? Have you got that in you?
Just to piss them off, maybe. Yeah. But not in general. He's always injured as well, isn't he?
Yeah,
he seems to be injured.
That is the Fab Delph question.
But you're looking at, you don't want to block the path for the two lads who are there, who he seems to think may have an opportunity. You want to give lads an opportunity, your midfield lads who can possibly play in there. Klein hasn't actually gone yet, by the way. He's probably the best option out there in terms of being able to play in both positions. So you've got Klein as well there. And then also maybe you're looking at Gomez as an option in them positions as well. So I personally think you might, by bringing someone in, you might block some of these lads if he thinks they're good enough.
It's not easy.
No, lads, it's hard. I think the problem you've got is Robertson's fucking boss, isn't he? But it's not just...
He's boss, but he's also so important and so integral to what we do.
You struggle to find a better left-back defensively than Andy Robertson, but you wouldn't find a better attacking left-back than Andy Robertson. So what you buy? You can't buy a fella who's just Andy Robertson light, because there isn't one. Because otherwise we'd have fucking bought him already. Do you know what I mean? Moreno, actually going forward, was okay. He's quite good. But he suffered from these lapses of concentration to the point where you don't want him anywhere near your penalty box ever. So it's a bit of a worry for a left back. I don't know what you do. I think the rotation of Robertson probably starts. I think he probably rotates early in the season. This block where we're trying to find ways to play games. And I think we spoke about it last. We come up with 4-2-3-1. To limit how much the fullbacks had to run for a bit, I think, last year. And I think this year they might do something similar, but I also think if you're paying Joe Gomez left back, you're not getting much end product from your left from an attacking sense. So then maybe you play your additional midfielder, and maybe you play someone as an out and out left winger who's effectively playing covering left back. You sort of skew your shape a bit to move Gomez across, and there's loads of different things I think we can do, and I think what we'll end up is finding a workaround. I don't think you can go and buy a left back off the shelf, because it's just, unless you're prepared to move, as someone said, you're going to delay the progress of the two lads who are playing at the minute, and buy someone else. Who is this someone else? Do you know what I mean?
It pulls back to something you've been saying a lot, John. You've been saying it for 2 seasons, I think, which is that there is, in our heads, you can fall into the idea that you need 20 world-class players that work. I can imagine there's some people listening to what Ben's just said and saying, a club that's just got 97 points and won the Champions League shouldn't be thinking about workarounds. And yet, I think City spent last season with a workaround. That it's difficult to actually have 20 absolute stellar footballers that you do need lads who are diligent, switched on tactically, etc., to come and do a job for you sometimes in unlikely places.
Yeah, they did, because it wasn't just a left back either. It was, as John said before, it was a defensive midfield, and they've basically got a lot of really good I've got a lot of really good in players in one space that they can't all play, and their thing is to get them games. But we can play them there, so it's all right. So that's their way of keeping, Godongan happy, or whoever you want to say.
And Zinchenko last season.
Yeah,
Zinchenko and Delph play left back for most of the season.
That's the way of you're thinking, well, how can I get Mahrez in more? Well, you can shift him to here and blah blah blah. So if that's your solution to that problem, you can't then say, oh yeah, but we've got two belters in each position, and it doesn't really kind of work like that. So it is finding a way of, rather than two world-class players in every position, which is completely unrealistic. It's, well, can we get to 18 and kind of few of them do a few different things? And I think that's what both managers have tried to do with a lot of success, it must be said.
Indeed, with a lot of success. It's always been the way in which it works. Quickly, because I'm going to go into it, well, Paul Senior's going to go into it on the gutter. Coutinho's agent makes certain noises, Adam Smith. They are the noises of Liverpool are all right, aren't they? It's a bit of a strange one. There's a finite number of clubs it looks as though Philippe Coutinho could go to, and I think that's almost got to be a starting point. And probably if you are Philippe Coutinho's agent and you're worried about what's happening at Barcelona, and your client's saying, I'm not quite sure about my games and I'm not quite sure if I'm having a nice time.
He's lost his number as well, hasn't he?
Has he? I thought that Griezmann's took 17, not 7.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, I think he's took 17 for now.
As he were.
But
stands on.
There is something, Adam, in... There's actually only a finite number of clubs, and just maybe they're beginning to think, we could go and do that again.
Yeah, I think there's no question whatsoever about Coutinho's ability. I think it's his suitability that's the criteria of whether or not he's the right sort of fit for the team we are now. And I don't know if I know where he fits into that. And, I don't care about all the nonsense of, he's a rat and all that sort of stuff. I don't care about that. But I did think his agent's comments were quite funny. He was like, he loves Liverpool, I know he down tools and faked injury and stuff like that, but God, he loves the place. Like, you can't have it both ways, mate. You either
always in
the
house
or not. Yeah, exactly, yeah. I just, it's all a little bit... I'm not bothered about that, but at the same time, I think Klopp is the sort of person he is bothered about that, because I think he felt really let down by the way Coutinho behaved last summer, and then heading into 2 summers ago, whatever it was, and heading into January and stuff, and sort of diddling him on the Champions League games and all those sorts of things, and so I'd be very surprised if we were looking at it. But if we are fine, brilliant. I mean, he's a very, very good player. So if Klopp thinks he can find a way to use him in the team that he's currently created in the form that it is, then great. But I don't think he will.
Paul, it's one where you're looking at it going, well, if it's Coutinho or no one, then it's a separate conversation. If it's Coutinho or player X who's of a similar value, well, then it might be a little bit different. You can even have a conversation Coutinho or Dembele, given the fact that both of them might find it difficult if Neymar goes back to Barcelona to get games on a regular basis there. It's difficult to sort of have... I'm as ever always impressed with the number of people who have remarkably strident views about certain things, but I find this one difficult to have that strident view about. My only real concern, though, is I think we've attacked better since he's left. And I think there's greater clarity as to who your most important attacking threat is, and it not being a centre midfielder / an attacking midfielder, but it being a forward has helped Liverpool massively.
Definitely, and I think the interesting thing with me for Coutinho is what Klopp thinks he is as a player, because there's been a lot of talk over the years about him dropping back into midfield. I mean, that's literally why he went to Barcelona. He wanted to be the next Iniesta, whatever else. I'm still not convinced that's where he plays. If I was bringing him back, I'd be looking at him as a front three option who can do bits playing deeper, depending on what you're doing, in the sense of like the way we use, like they're talking about, you're using Lallana and stuff like that. So I think it very much depends on what Klopp sees him as, and what he wants, because I'm still not sure what Klopp wants out of this summer. He's talked about the left back. He hasn't really talked about the attacking options and what he wants to do there, really. So, yeah, I don't know, is the honest answer. I think it's really difficult.
I'd be surprised if it happens on the basis that it'd have to be an unbelievable deal for us. And I think that the easy thing to link is, well, Barcelona still owe them 80 million of the transfer fee, so it's obvious, X plus Y equals whatever. But I don't see it doesn't stack up as a natural fit for the way Klopp works. I think he's very much a fella who looks forward, and this feels like it feels a little bit like a good option for Coutinho, but not so much for us. So then it has to out. Then you're getting him back for fuck all. Then you still give us 80 million and we'll pay his wages, and that's never going to happen, is it?
I'm a lot more positive than everyone in the room in terms of him and the possibility. I think, you see what's going on with fees at the moment, and Harry Maguire going for 80, Lewis Dunk 45. I mean, that's the kind of talk, isn't it? That's what people are saying.
The Lewis Dunk 45 thing hit me hard. I'm not going to lie to you.
Wild, isn't it?
Yeah. You do start to wonder about what you're worth.
Yeah, and I reckon I'm at least. I reckon John was 1.7 million. Off the back of that, I did the maths.
I wouldn't fancy with the medical though.
Yeah, he's shit at algebra, but he's.
Yeah, he just had to say another letter, didn't he?
Just in case he was wrong. I was struggling. The age was like, fucking hell, think of a letter.
Just in case it wasn't, mate. Letters can be whatever you want, mate. That's the beauty. Where we Coutinho, I'm more positive about it all round, really. I think he's still a brilliant player. I think, there are ways that he could fit into this team, and I think he'd come back with maybe a bit more humility, I was going to say, but that's not really what I mean. What I mean is, I think we've won something really big without him now. So this idea that, it's not going well, let's look for Coutinho, I don't think he'd do. And I think he'd become more of another really good player we've got, rather than like the man, which he was like the man by the end. I'll get it to Phil and see what he can make happen. And I don't think that was necessarily the right way to go at that time, as has been proved since, by the fact that the success we've had. And so I think he'd come back and be more of just an outstanding option for us. I think he's realised that the grass isn't always greener a little bit, and I think Jürgen has took players back. He did do it at Dortmund for a couple of them, not exactly the same situations, but then when our two situations exactly the same. And I think it's might get to the point with these transfers going the way they are, that actually 80 million quid for Coutinho feels like value, and I don't think we get him for that. I think it might be a case of a little bit more, but 100 million for Coutinho. When you're talking about not just the Maguire and Dunks, but the what we get, if we start getting quoted 50 million for Nicolas Pepe, and they're not sure about him, and then you start to go, well, you know what, this Coutinho, we know exactly what he's like, and he played silly buggers with his back for a bit, but actually we know what he's like when he's here. We know he gets on with the lads. We know, we'll get Darby back for him if he wants, and stuff like that. And I think it might start to make more and more sense for everyone the longer this window goes.
The longer the window goes is an interesting part. Last little one. Dani Olmo. John, is the Olmo question. Plays currently for Dinamo Zagreb. Links have been increasing around this. Plays a winger or an attacking midfielder. Being really important for the Spanish side. Says he doesn't want to go back to Spain. The under-21 side, says he doesn't want to go back to Spain. He's getting linked with Liverpool. Does appear to fit the profile of positions, maybe. Certainly what was said before about the idea we might feel we've got number 9 boxed.
Yeah, you worry a bit about the league, don't you? In terms of, I remember it was Eduardo went to Arsenal, who scored a ton in that league, and then sort of came over and they sort of quite happy for. I think he got a horrendous injury, to be fair, but I don't know. It just seems a bit of a strange one to me. But it's sometimes things are so left field that you think, well, there must be kind of something in it. Maybe they feel there's a bit of value there going to there, as what I was talking about before. I mean, the first time I did him was when I got this agenda through, and then I googled a few things, but most of them you've just read out.
Stitched you there, didn't I?
I watched the video of his highlights. It was 10 minutes long.
Right.
You don't get very 10-minute highlight videos.
No.
Things I found from it. He beat about 10 men in the first thing that used the first clip. And then the second part was how crap the Croatian league must be.
Well, that's
because it was poor. It's a bit of a weird move as well, isn't it? I think he came through Barcelona's youth team, and he's gone to Zagreb. Strange.
Wants to get games, I think. Adam, any Dani Olmo thoughts?
He's a valid answer.
I've
I've seen one video of him that it was the most anticlimactic thing you've ever seen. It was a goal for the Spanish under-21 side, and there was loads of passing it round. I was like, this is going to be a brilliant goal. This passing it round. There was one fella taking about 4 people on. I was like, this is going to be amazing. And then basically it was just somebody had a shot, the keeper saved it, and he knocked in the parry. And I was like, friggin' hell! I thought he was going to belt one from like the edge of the box. He's just, I mean, it's obviously a good poacher's goal, but I was still a bit disappointed in that, to be honest. So on that basis, no, I'm out.
You're out, Dani Olmo.
Don't know, lad. I've never heard of him.
All right.
Ever.
Did well for the in the under-21s, supposedly. Worth remembering.
Watching Firpo every weekend.
I've been taking up my time watching him.
You're just so focused on Firpo.
So far, it's like a player camp.
It's been a pleasure in association with RedsBet, part of FansBet. It's been a pleasure with John Gibbons, Adam Smith, Ben Johnson and Paul Hogan. Come and see us if you're in Chicago. Come and see us if you're in New York. We'll be knocking around Boston. We're everywhere, really, if we're quite honest about it. But have a lovely time.